Hello, hello. Let me see. That's all these audio levels look good. I don't have myself muted today. It's gonna be a good day. We're starting off with a good count. Let me get that updated on both of the other screens here. And welcome. Welcome. It's gonna be a good day. 8571. Look at that. Made some good progress. I didn't quite get all of the stuff done that I was looking to get done naturally. That's more like 13%. It seems like it's not gonna be reachable because we're already a third of the way through the month, and I'm not quite there, but I'm feeling pretty confident still. I might have to push my side challenge a little bit, but we're still gonna have a good time. I got Starlia mostly done last night. Honestly, we took a little bit of a break we took a half day yesterday and kind of got sidetracked with some self-care and needed the battery reset. Let me be honest about that. That was fun. It was good. We played a little bit of Stardew Valley, watched a little bit of TV, just kind of, simmered down and did a little bit of nothing, kind of. Cat and I. And it's going to be a good day because I really am feeling quite refreshed. And we're going to get some music going. I'm going to keep the audio on to hear my clicky clacky. I'm going to try not to talk. It's a good, because that's not what the role is here, right? The role isn't here for me to discuss and engage in that way unless folks ask questions. My role is to be a body double so that you can enjoy your writing as well. So, enjoy the music. Some more soothing tones of Old Gods of Asgard from Alan Wake 2 and the Remedyverse.
Soothing sound.
Soothing.
Not yeah.
Like jazz, baby. Put this up just a smidge. Yeah, that's the sensitivity. Can't just slap his name on everything. Welcome, viewer. Oh no. There we go. For some reason, it wasn't the horizontal. Feel free to pass us some notes. Oh, hi, Star. Come on. Up. Up or go away. Those are your choices. There's a comment. It works well for both areas. I can't put it in both areas though. Okay, I gotta take the idea and split it into 2 spots. Take half the idea, put it somewhere else. That's not right. Use it there. Libraries from neighboring communities will still share books and services if they're allies, so they could still work in tandem with each other. Okay. That's why they have such a similar system, is because one of them. Which one? Okay, which one came first, the chicken or the egg? History of their isolationism, really. What? Meow? You want a belly rub? Come here. I'm gonna give you a belly rub. Yeah, you crazy. You crazy. Meow. Go lay down. Go lay down. Yeah, thank you. feel like he was inspired by the other city. Inspired by the other city. Yeah. There we go. Okay. And then make a new one. Babe, can you let her out?
You want outside? You want outside?
She just rests her head on the ground. Yes. I do. Please help me.
Yeah, do you want outside? Oh.
Ooh. Okay. So now, play around with the idea of the printing press a little bit. If we're accelerating the timeline of public school by a couple hundred years, with a rudimentary version of it, and the printing press would theoretically have to exist, because the idea of readily available knowledge is what allowed the idea of public school and public sharing of knowledge to exist like that. But where and when did they discover it? Where was it made on the island or in this realm? And when was it discovered by this civilization? Or do they have their own version of it? Because there's rudimentary printing press from like dyeing stone blocks, right? And then using that as kind of like stamps, right? Rudimentary stamps. Automating the process is what allowed it to. But I remember reading that there was the cuneiform language had been written down in like an ancient sort of printing press method, so that it could be so 15th century for the printing press, late 16th century for public school. But they don't need to have a ratio-esque gap of time like that. They don't need to be structured in the same way. It does need to exist, though. Okay. Alright, so branching out to one of the other islands. Definitely not Aramore. Shatterwind didn't exist yet. It hadn't broken off the middle land. Okay. So the best choices for that would be Calthorn or Haven Island. I think Calthorn. Okay, so when did the history of this organization root? It rooted from this place. Calthorn is a different island. It's not that far. It's one of the closer islands to this place. But it would be on the west coast. So I think a good spot for that would probably be Silverbirth to the south, which is the largest dock town. So if the printing press came from another location, it would be rooted in, first at least, in Silverbirth. Okay. So that concept changes. Library began. Yeah. How long ago? Story 15 years ago. It's not arbitrary. Do we want to celebrate an anniversary for the library at any point during the story? For this particular library? Maybe that's what inspired the creation of it in the other city, is that they were having their like celebration of doing it for like 100 years or something, and then other people are like, whoa, okay, so that idea works, let's also do that. I feel like that works. Doesn't have to be a 100-year anniversary though. It could be like 25 or 50, you know, something even slightly substantive. Even 10 years, right? So I want to show. So I'm kind of working from some data that I happen to have left over. I mentioned that we had lost a lot of content from our drive and a lot of different videos, a lot of different streams, and that was in the drive that's not our nonprofits drive. So I was getting everything out of all of the other stuff and about to put it into the nonprofits drive. So we only have the one story, or I guess the one series in the nonprofits drive is really what it is, because that's what we were working on for the Kickstarter. And so this is where I'm kind of pulling a lot. I'm pulling a lot of stuff from this huge document that we made to kind of like get our artists to understand more about the characters. So it's all just kind of like we sat down and we just like did free writes, and so I'm like taking that data and I'm putting it into World Anvil. So I have a technical 8571 words today is how you could think about it. But yeah. Oops, I nudged the mute. She the Starlia is our main. I didn't share her yesterday, so that's why I'm doing this. I was like, I talked a little bit about Lucy, and then I didn't talk at all about Star, and I was like, oh shoot. So she's the youngest of the cats that we got. She's the little cutie. She was the one bugging me a little bit ago. But she's a little cutie. She is a great main character because she's a shy runt of a litter character that becomes a great courageous champion of her people. So I'm like taking God, how many words are in that document alone? 14,000 words in there of just like raw content for the characters of the story. So I don't count that for this month officially. I have it in here as like, I should put an asterisk next to the 8571, but I don't count it technically until I've formatted it a little bit, you know, because that's kind of the point of what the 50,000 words is supposed to be. It's supposed to be 50,000 words of a formatted story that you have kind of ready to go and that you can take to publish. So this is the content that's going to help us get to the tabletop book that we want to publish, right? So I still want it to be formatted. I don't want to just like show up and throw up words onto the screen. But so yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about Star. She's the runt. She's really small. She's got this little orange spot on her head. That's why she's called Star, both in the story and in real life. And she's a rogue. She's roguish. So, you know, a little bit of a spy helps her to be able to blend in and be sneaky, and hope the music isn't washing out all of that. But one of her hobbies is eating cheese. Well, actually, she doesn't really like to eat it necessarily. She likes to steal it for Lucy, and then she'll eat it because it's like a social thing at that point. Back to it. arbitrary unless there's some sort of anniversary or something. Is the person who started the library alive? Ooh, okay, that's an idea. Mm-hmm. Over. Okay. Oh, gotta do a little bit of extrapolation with some stuff that I haven't played with in a sec. Okay, so Calthorn, distant, jungle-ridden land, huge library, created the printing press in this realm. One of the members of that library eventually brought that technology to the Isle of Tana. That technology eventually was used, and a traveling book salesman settled down in a town north of where those printing presses had established. What is the species of this person who traveled north with these books? Did they come from Calthorn? Were they the person who brought the printing press technology? That seems unlikely. This is a chain of events that led to this thing being able to happen, right? So it was invented. It somehow found its way across an ocean to this island, established itself as something valuable. Silverbirth isn't the most religious. Historically, the printing press was invented and utilized first for printing Bibles. What about the news? That's a different kind of publication. It's a different generation. It's in both contexts of that word. Music. It could be about music. It could be about composition. So they found value in the printing press because then they could spread their sea shanties and their music. I mean, not explicitly sea shanties, but oh, I might have a name for the printing press in the world too, actually. What?
I'm interested.
Well, but you're not part of the stream. I have to go put it down before I lose it. Would you consider that a trade guild? A printing press?
No.
Because scribes would be like a trade. Not like trade like selling, like
No,
a trade
I know,
like
I
a
know.
skill or a craft.
Yeah.
Silverbirth needs a music school. That would be a trade, even though it would be a scholarly thing. That's an interesting, right? Just because it teaches you things doesn't mean it's scholarly.
Yeah.
And then, so the name of the organization for the printing press is, I almost have it. You could do Silver Sails and Tails as the name. It's almost there. That's what I'm saying. Silver, it doesn't have to have silver in it necessarily. It's the sail and the tail. I'm just gonna put sails and tails for now, with quotations as a working title. Sails and tails. I spelled the wrong tails. Printing press. Yeah, I already put a Bardic school in Melodon as well. So composition is not the same as just playing music. Composition is creating the music. So that's what Silverbird. There can be more than one music school, and you're going to teach different kinds of music, and that's okay. Shut up, Nick. It's just more work in the back end, and that's the thing that my brain's telling me to stop. Okay, this isn't even what I'm supposed to be working on right now. I was working on some prompts for Starlia, and I realized I didn't have like her school in the wiki yet, and then I realized that her school hadn't even been invented yet, and it's just like this whole like path of like, oh well, now there's all this stuff that I have that I get to add to characters and stuff. Where would that be? That's right here. Oh, and I don't have the pictures for the characters yet. I never got the finals from our artist yet, so I can't share those today. I realized yesterday that I maybe hadn't gotten them yet. Maybe I like just hadn't pulled them out of the email or something, but confirmed haven't gotten them yet. So they are inbound probably this week. But this article, at least Starlia's article, should be good to go today. I'm going to publish it just anyways. It's just taking out that content and getting it drafted into her actual page, you know? Education. species. That's the thing I'm stuck on here. So I have this story about the library, the traveling sale. Okay. So the printing press was made on Calthorne and brought here and blah 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 blah. I need to know the species of the person that's doing the book selling, so that I can understand the context of why they would decide to settle down and put away the selling of books and instead make a library with their collection. So the city that they do it in is a culturally rich city, so they know that there'll be opportunity to print the stories, but instead of making money, they instead like take their collection of books that they have readily accessed at the printing press just south and bring it to this new city that they have. I mean, it's not like they stay there a night and then they're like, oh, I'm going to start a library, right? It's like an overtime thing.
Yeah. So, you're talking about Blackfeet, right?
No, it's not in Blackfeet. It's not Blackfeet. It's... What? Don't look at me with that confusion. You asked this simple question. I told you it's not that.
What city is it?
Silverbirth. But that's vague. I just referenced 3 different cities, so I don't know how to answer that question.
The city that the person goes to start settle down and sell books.
You don't know the name of that city. You hadn't heard the name of it yet. Okay. So that's Melodon.
Okay. What species kind of...
I'm not saying I need you to tell me what species, but... So I guess I'm stuck on, like... There's a lot of, like, time spans that I haven't... Right, it's like, this is a good idea, this is a good idea, this is a good idea, but what are the spans of time between each of these things? And it's somewhat arbitrary, right? So talking it out helps me to figure those things out, and that's not saying, you know, you help me with it all the time. So it's this like idea of how long has the printing press been there? How long has this person been selling books, or like how long has the selling of books been available, right? Because even when the printing press was first made, the books were not just like immediately like, okay, well, you can just buy them wherever you want. They were still hoarded and withheld from people outside of the church systems. And outside of like monastery libraries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's like...
Technically, the first printing press was by Shing in China, not by Gutenberg. But it used different technologies, different materials to get it done. And then, yeah, Korea actually had a version of the printing press before that even.
Okay. If I said that the Gutenberg press was the first one, I meant that it was the first one that made books readily available to the public.
Yeah.
Because those, if I'm not mistaken, those two were not, like, the knowledge that those printed was still not shared with the populace. It was still withheld in like royal libraries and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It was just for the nobles. Yeah. So it was to make knowledge, which was power back then and still is today, only for the 1%, so to speak.
Yeah.
Right. So not the same thing.
I don't know if it was the same for Korea as well.
Yeah, I mean, even the Gutenberg Bible, or the Gutenberg press wasn't readily available for everyone at first either, so...
Yeah, not right away.
Yeah, so I'm still misquoting myself in some way. Whatever the case, I don't understand the relevance of you sharing that.
Time spans, so I just...
Okay, well, I'm talking about time spans for this
I know.
fictional place, though, right?
I mean, you still want to base it in kind of more reality, right?
No, not necessarily, because then we have slavery for 150 years in a country that probably shouldn't have it, and stuff like that. And it's not saying we shouldn't have that history, but we have to honor and understand that history, but we don't want to like exemplify it as instructions, right? Some people read the stories and they take them as instructions, but it's supposed to be warnings. And I think it might be a good idea to try to avoid some of those interpretations, but not in a phallicistic, optimistic way, right? There still needs to be some valid ways to address those truths. What the order in which technology is invented doesn't necessarily need to be canon. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Like there's an understanding that there are certain things that can't follow without the creation of certain things, right? So like what the invention of the Korean and the Chinese printing presses that you were talking about, what system did that creation allow?
Just made replicating stuff a little easier.
It allowed the noble elites to continue to stay in power easier. Maybe not directly, but the knowledge and the information that they gained from that allowed them to stay in power, right? So the things that they do from that state of disparity, like what's another good example? Like,
well, you said we don't necessarily want this world to be broken.
I understand. So I'm not so, but that also doesn't mean to erase that idea, right? So that idea is going to exist in some capacity. It should, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying the order in which those things happen are a lot more fluid than in our world because it's not real. That's what I'm trying to say. Despite that, however, if you let me finish, we do still need to keep some sequence of events because certain technologies couldn't exist without other ones preceding that. That's what I'm trying to get at. So like if we hadn't found certain advances in math, we couldn't have created engineering technologies, right? We couldn't have created certain instruments of war. Siege engines couldn't have been invented without a certain understanding of math. That's what I mean by that. So it's not necessarily what I'm trying to say is you need to look at the context of what happened after the creation of that thing, not just that it was created. Right? So what I was doing with the Gutenberg press is I was using that as a frame of reference to, well, silver birth isn't the most religious. So they probably wouldn't use it in that same way. That's what I was saying in that.
Yeah.
So if you could give me some more context about the Chinese or the Korean printing presses and what they were used for, I would love to explore that. And I can still look it up and do research, of course.
Yeah, I don't know.
I see you rubbing your temples, and I understand that you don't want to talk about this anymore. So that's why I'm trying to close out this part of the conversation and say that there's another way for me to do this without us talking about it right now.
Yeah. I'm still trying to do my homework.
Okay. Well, you're the one who engaged me in the conversation. You could have told me, please leave me alone, I'm doing homework. I'm sorry for distracting you. island. Why does he want to sell books? Why does he decide to stop selling books? He's definitely not a native. Or at least he is someone who's been a sailor for some time of his life. Hasn't really had a home, but not that he hasn't had places to call home. Because he's felt this sense of belonging before, it allows him to find that home with other people very easily. Especially being a sailor and having a family that maybe doesn't, stay around because they get lost at sea or die of sickness or disease or something. But they're all there for each other. Maybe, but then why does he stay on land and lose his love of the ocean and then so maybe that's what working at the printing press allowed him to do, was have that medium, quite literally, where he would still be able to honor his heritage as a sailor and share those stories and the stories of his crew. Okay. Okay, so maybe he is a native. Maybe he is a native, but maybe not a native to Silverbirth. Maybe he's from Remilden. And he went south because the tunnel passage hadn't opened yet. No, that would have been way before his time. Alright, so he went south because okay, so if he's from Remilden, there's a good chance that he's human, because that's the main human city of the island. Okay. Okay. I think we got a good character there. Who's going to be able to create a good amount of history on the island. Comes from Remilden, goes to the south, becomes a sailor, or a pirate perhaps even for a while. And that helps him to find a family that he didn't have in Remilden, so he's probably an orphan or an urchin, or what prompted him to leave Remilden? What age was he? It's a dangerous journey, and there's a toll bridge. He's gonna have to have a good reason to leave. There's a good chance he could die just getting there. You gotta go through a dangerous jungle, and then you gotta go through a harsh desert right after that. That's crazy. That'd be a several month journey. It's not just something where you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna leave. So if he has nothing tying in there, that's one thing, but he still needs to worry about the tolls and the danger. So there's... Oh. Okay. He's definitely human. That's the thing that's relevant for this article. So that reduces the lifespan by quite a bit. And that means, or you know, the potential. So that means we probably want him to be younger, on the younger side when he leaves for Milton. Gives us more time in his adult years to have content. He leaves for Milton. Let's say... Ooh, yeah, I want him to have a sad story. I want him to have a sad story that just gets brighter and brighter. And that's why he decides to share those stories, right? And tell those stories, is because he sees that brighter side. But there's a little bit of bias in that, naturally. Builds out. Okay. So I'm playing with this idea. He had a hard life growing up, or he was given up in some way. You know, like they decided that they just didn't want him anymore, and that defines a person for their whole life, you know, if your parents just kind of like toss you aside. So he's got this not like sold into slavery or anything, but in medieval times people used to sell their children to make ends meet and stuff. So they would, like, a passing noble would come by and they'd need, like, you know, a squire for a night, or they'd need probably not that, but they, because a squire needs a lot of training and stuff like that, and the knight gets to decide that. But there's all sorts of different roles and tasks that need to, you know, be taken care of in any castle or manor or something like that, and they don't want to pay people to do that, so they used to buy children from people, and then they would put them to work, kind of like an indentured servant, you know. So they'd live on the premise, and they'd get to eat food, not the same food naturally, and they were wards, you know, they were wards of a sort. But there's a lot of different ways that could go. It's not always like that. So he was sold by his parents in Ramilden when he was young. So he didn't have a choice in going south, the person who bought him. And then the ship that they're sailing on gets taken over by pirates, is what I'm thinking, and then he becomes a pirate. So it's not that he chose to be one, right? It was that was what he had to do. So when those pirates end up, like, maybe they disband, they can't get arrested for the story, for this story to work. So they get disbanded, or they all, like, they decide, because, like, they decide that they don't want to be pirates anymore, or it gets too dangerous for them, or maybe one of their people dies, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But if he's 14 when he joins, they could have a pretty crazy 5 or 6 years before he gets to be 20 years old as a pirate, and then still have like a full life doing like book selling and all sorts of other stuff. So I think that character is really, that's a really solid story for that. So he'd be 20 when let's say 20 when he leaves the pirates. 6 years is a long time to be at sea doing that stuff, I imagine. It's a lot of hard work, and so he did that for 6 years, and then he and the group disbands in some unknown way, and then he decides, I'm going to take my stories and get them published. I'm going to share the sea shanties of my group now that it's disbanded and keep their story alive. Solid. Love that. He does it for 10 years. It takes him 10 years to get all of those stories out. And then but it's not like he's just sitting there. So why does he, after 10 years, decide to, is he selling them while he's writing them, or is he just writing them and then he's working at the press and printing them? What prompts him to leave with his book collection, become a traveling salesperson? Maybe he starts to get antsy again because he's starting to run out of stories, and he wants to go see the world again. Maybe he feels like he'll find some more tales. Happen right away when he becomes a salesperson. It's like his first stop. He's like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm gonna go to Melodon. Take him a long time to go and hit all the stops. Has he got a wagon with him, or is he just like taking a couple books with him to a town? He's probably got a wagon with him or something. Okay. So he decides, I'm going to go along the coast first, because then I have a better chance of selling pirate stories and sea shanties. He goes around the south coast, goes up to Split Silt, and south and around through the jungle, through the swamp. Doesn't go to Tana's, and he wouldn't want to go north because that's dangerous. So, and then sailing around that area, how long ago would that be? That's like, say, 15 years. Might be during the time of peace. Yeah, I think that would be. Yeah, 52 years ago, that's when the king before the king was alive, so... It was near the end of his tenure. Oh, man. He's 30 when he does this. It's probably going to take him a while. He's almost 31 by the time he gets to Melodon. I don't think it would take him a whole year to get there. So he goes around through the swamp to Deltamere. From Deltamere he goes around the coastline. But he doesn't visit any of the catfolk places. He doesn't think that they'll be interested. Okay. Except for Melodon. Melodon's a hybrid city. So he takes the ship all the way around to the North Port city. I don't have a name for that city yet. And then goes inland from there. Maybe he's working his way back to Remeldon, but he stops at Melodon first. And maybe he would have gone to Black Peak. Or maybe he would have gone to that tunnel that splits the path, and he would have decided to go back home to Remeldon. And maybe he would have been a different person then. Yeah, I think this is a really good character we got here. What do we got? Well, a name for this dude. This person. So 30 years old when he starts that. Takes him less than a year to get to the city. He stays at the city for like 4 months, maybe. Less than half a year. Doesn't take him very long to fall in love with it. And then he decides to go south back to Silverbirth and get his collection, or no, he has his collection with him because he's got the wagon. So is he taking the books from the wagon, and then he's settling back down into being... Oh, man. Surely he doesn't have his whole collection of writing books for 10 years with him. And there's other books in his collection outside of his books that he wouldn't have with him. So he does have to make a trip back to Silverbirth. So when he is 30... How long does it take to get the building made and all that other stuff? It'll take about a year, because it's like a 2-month journey to Silverbirth. So there and back, I'd say 2 trips. Big collection of books. During which time the buildings will get started after the first collection of books is left there. At least a storage facility or something for them, I don't know. You wouldn't leave without them having a place to sit. So yeah, some unknown thing in Melodon holds on to the books. He goes back south, he gets more books. The building is mostly, at least the place that can store the books is done, so he can drop them off. And then he goes and gets more books, the last load. And then he opens up a library, so it would take him, let's say, 6 months. So if he's 31, he's almost 31, so it's like, let's say, 9 months. So he's there for, let's say, 4 months, so he's 31 in a month, and then takes him about 6 months, so he's 31 and a half. And that was about, I want it to be on an anniversary date, so it's got to be a 50 or a 75. So if he's 32, 75, he could be 106. He'd be turning 107 if he was still alive during the anniversary. Humans in our world live to be 120 on average, or like that's their, it's instead of 100, it's 120, so it's still plausible that he could be 107 in our reality as a human. Do I want him to still be alive though? During that 75 anniversary. That's a plot point I maybe don't need right now, but I want to say 75. I think that sounds like a better number than 50. All of this is just because I'm trying to figure out how long to make the anniversary. So I built a whole character that's oriented around the history of this place. So I have to figure out when the place was made, but the place can't be made without a person. So I had to build the person to build the place, and then I had to build the places that this person... Whew! What a journey. Now I need to come up with a name for this dude. 75 years prior, and that anniversary happened 12 years ago. library, though. It's something a little different. Oh. Okay.
Through darkest dark, I'm pushing through. Through the end, I'm reaching you.
Cool. That's a good chunk of lore right there. So today, what we were able to figure out, kind of sidetracked from some of the other things we were doing. We were able to figure out some of the history and existence of the printing press. Of course, there's going to be more than one printing press. Kat helped to remind me of that. So it is the history of a printing press is what we would describe it as. And where it was invented, where the idea transferred from that place that it was invented into another city, and then some of the cultural and historical implications of having such a technology on that island that didn't invent or values that same context, right? So we have to figure out where this island would find value in that technology as a non-inventor of it, as someone who's adapting that technology for an entire culture or couple of cultures. And then we figured out someone who could utilize that technology and a life that they led, a backstory for that character, to create a library in a town that we're not even working on. Whoa, no, we're working on the town. It's, that's how the ideas work. Is I'm working on a character A, right? And character A has backstory that involves a whole bunch of stuff that's not even connected to them at all, the city and the city history and all of this other stuff. So it's like you have to figure out the motivations of the character, but in order to figure out the motivations of the character, you have to know the environment that they're in and all of these other things. So you kind of have to keep backpedaling until you find the solid ground that you go back forward with. It's very intriguing. That's the writing process. I love it. It's really cool. It's fluid and living and dynamic, and it's always changing. Just like life. Beautiful. Okay, so this guy, I want to get some notes down for that guy, and then I think that's my good spurt of writing today, at least on stream. We have some shopping and some errands to do. We like to do our house cleanings on Sunday, and we also got to feed the Sneaky today, and myself. My belly just went grf. It just went. So let me get this character in here real quick. He's probably gonna be listed as. I'm gonna put him here. No, it would be under legends and lore. He's probably gonna be a prominent dude. Yeah, that's the only thing I haven't figured out. Well, no, that's one of the things I haven't figured out in the back end is where to put leaders of organizations, like named leaders. Things are a little vague still. They're a little loose in the background still. So I don't want to get like lose them or whatever. So let's see what we can do. We're gonna call him them, her, person. Picking up a D name. Probably because Ramildin. Yeah, that's why I'm picking that up. Okay, step away from that. Um, no. No. Yes, he's gonna be hard to name. He's wearing a lot of different hats throughout his life. We've put him in a lot of different roles. It's gonna be hard to name him. Um, and I say him still in a general sense and not referring to gender in that context, like M, like EM. Okay. There's not very many V names that can come to mind here. Vincent or Vivian. Maybe that's a good name for him. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put um nope, can't use that name because that's gonna make people think about a different character that is. Ooh, an old person name, but I think it's a good one. It starts with a V. Vera. Vera. And that's good because their life goes in a bunch of directions. It veers in a bunch of directions. That's not why I chose it. That's just a nice little thing. I chose it because I was thinking that it would probably be better for this. Like, I think that this character would be better represented as a female. I think that most of the examples that I'm thinking about where children were sold were males being sold, but I'm going to do some more research and see if that's something that happened with females, with girls, with girls, and explore that prospect of them being sold to like a merchant noble or something like that. And I don't know, I think Vera the pirate sounds pretty cool. I think that sounds like a cool pirate name, Vera. I don't know what this person looks like yet. I know a lot of other things about them though, and that makes them sound like a cool person. So let's get that scribed up, that idea scribed up real quick. against her will in many ways. Southbound. After leaving Silverbirth, Vera was overtaken by pirates, and she was taken up into their crew. Ooh, they get to write pulp fiction about Remilden as well. That's a fun thing. I didn't even think about that. Welcome, welcome. We are nearly done with our stream today. I'm just getting some final thoughts for a character that we kind of workshopped out today a little bit. And while we were in the process of working on a different character. But thank you so much for joining. And we will be doing this again tomorrow and for every day until the end of November. For about an hour, maybe a little bit more. Some days it's like an hour and a half like today. Other days it's 2 hours or more. I think we had one day where it was a little over 2 hours, but we're just doing writing for November. So if you want to join us tomorrow, we'll be, I've turned the music off because I'm kind of closing out, but we usually have some music playing and some other cool stuff like that. So, and if you want to pass us any notes, of course, we have that chat bar set up. So it's not that chatting isn't an option. I'm trying to keep myself from talking too much because it's supposed to be more of a body double, but closing out currently. So printing press as an author, where they would publish stories of their youth, sea shanties, and stories from Milden that folks after another 10 years, I will grow restless once more. Oh. You did that stupid thing that you did. She decided to go south more into the jungle rather than what was once home or into the mountains of Blackwood. Moved on where her expectations of the Catholic city were immediately challenged. The explosion of culture. Belonging. Cool. After 4 months, she knew she would settle down there and began her book collection as building a library. Celebrated. "75 years later, the library still stands and celebrates its anniversary. But why is that backwards? Let's say she lived to be 102. So 5 years before the anniversary. Yeah. It's cool. It's cool. Mira's got a lot of content to fill. I still have no idea what this person looks like in my brain. I'm just picturing a woman. Messy, maybe curly hair. That's not the gear I'm in right now. I'm in just raw content mode. So, but the cool thing about that is even just that character alone today gave us about 500 words. Closing out now for realsies, not for play, is 94 words. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So we we got about 500 words from that today. Didn't really work on Star at all during the stream. Got super sidetracked by this, but that's totally okay. The place that's this whole thing started because I was trying to figure out a school or a place of education for Star, for a character, and I realized that the place that she would have been taught needed to be made. It needed to be invented first, right? Because the way that the time periods, like, it's not like it has to be an explicit 1-to-1 ratio. We're using medieval references. Everything has to be explicit to the Middle Ages. But you want to make sure it still makes some sense. It's not just like some random person just came along and was like, oh, yo, I invented this because it's helpful for the story. So, the history of how the object was invented on a different island gives us a little bit of credence so that we can just say, oh, I don't need to know how it works. I just know that it exists, right? But that history still needs to exist when we get to that island. If someone were to talk about it, we couldn't just, like, we could have some people definitely in lore could say, yeah, I don't know shit about that. That makes sense. Yeah, I'm writing about it and I need to learn a little bit more about it so that I'm not that person, right? But there's going to be people in the world that are like, yeah, I don't know anything about how fossil fuels work. I just know that it goes in my car and then my car goes goo. It goes goo, you know? Some people are like that, and that's okay, you know? We live in a society that favors that as a system. You know, you don't need to understand a thing, you just need to know how it works. Or just need to know that it works, not how it works. I don't really like that personally, so, but there's going to be people that are like that. So, characters in the world might say that I don't know how a printing press works, but there's going to be people who are using it who, you might give a tour of the facility, and that's how you could explain that in world. Someone could be like, ah, yes, this is the Sales and Tales printing press. And of course, we didn't invent the printing press. The printing press was made on Cowthorn and blah, 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 blah. I don't need to make up that stuff right now. But I know that when I get to that scene, that's how I'm going to frame it. That's the cool thing about what we did today, right? Anyways, hope you all have a wonderful rest of yours. Got some errands to run. We might have Friendsgiving this month. We might not. We're playing around with it. That's something that we're going to see. I have some friends that I'm helping with some other projects today as well. Lots of little things. I'm glad that we got the writing that we got done, and I hope you got some writing done.